Hello, everybody. My name is Jesus Montoya. I'm the Associate Director for Retention Services, and my office oversees the MapWorks system on campus. So MapWorks on campus is the official early warning and retention service platform for the university. And so it's the system where you would submit a referral if a student needed help that was in your class. So it's for non-emergency and non-imminent threat referrals. So a student isn't showing up for class and you've tried to reach out, isn't turning in assignments, or has come to you and said, I don't know how to get support for this. We understand that there's a ton of resources on campus and that you might not have the opportunity to learn about all of them. So we want to put it all into one place. So all of the my colleagues to my left here are all in MapWorks as well. So you would just need to submit it to me, and then we would read whatever you send, and we would automatically send it to wherever it needs to go. And then that specific office will reach out to the student in a developed protocol that we have. Everybody on campus will have an account in MapWorks. You just go to salemstate.edu, and then the logins, info for faculty, staff, and then we're right on the front page. So it's the same place you would find Polaris, your email, and something else. Canvas. You can also get to the login page through just signing in through Polaris, and you'll see MapWorks on there. You sign in with your same single sign-on as everything else, and then you just follow the instructions for referrals, which will be in the repository. The other reason why you might use this is for academic updates in the middle of the year. Middle of the semester, you'll receive an email from the provost asking to do mid-semester updates. You'll get an email which will give you all the links. All you need to do is sign in, and you can put if a student is at risk of failing or the student's risk of failing, high or low, the number of absences that they have, grade in progress if they have one, and then notes. And then you have the opportunity to identify that they should go to get an academic updates referral, which will then do some outreach for that. So that's the gist of it, and I have some information here that explains it more into detail, but it's Lisa's turn.
Hi, I'm Lisa Bibo. I'm the Assistant Dean of Disability Services. We are locked in really close, so as you've seen a few minutes ago, I'm getting squashed around a little bit, so if I jump, you'll understand. Every time Jesus moves, I'm getting shoved. So what my office does, we are actually located, I should start there, in the library, G20. We are on the ground floor. Very easy to get to from if you're parking either in the faculty lot or in the garage outdoor faculty lot area. We are here to make sure that the curriculum is accessible for all students, and that comes in a variety of different ways. That might be as simple as a student needing an academic accommodation within your classroom. For instance, perhaps a student maybe their processing is slowed by the effects of their disability. They would be working with our office, have provided documentation, and then at that point we would be writing a letter to you all stating that the accommodation that they're approved for would be extended time on set assignments. We write what is needed on that letter. We don't write much. That letter is purposefully written in a way that a student can feel free to make sure that their story is told, but you feel confident, you understand exactly what the student needs. That part is very much taken care of within that letter point. The students at this point in time are 100% participating at 100% in the signature portion of that letter, which means that they are also signing off that a faculty member, if needed to talk to us about their accommodation, can hear about why that accommodation is needed. Again, we might not be talking about diagnoses, but we'd be talking about the need for that student to have access to the curriculum through that accommodation. We also work to make sure that your materials are made accessible to students. One of the larger programs that we do have to accommodate students with print disabilities is to make sure that we are able to get textbooks that are in alternative format. So the textbooks you're choosing, the students would let us know what that is, and we would then make sure we have a receipt on file, and we go to the publisher and we request a PDF version of that text. And the student is then able to access it whichever way they need to with a screen reader. Actually, a lot of our veteran students use this service because they don't have the ability to take that much weight for their back, perhaps, or their necks from class to class. So they're using it in more of the traditional format, but they're using it for that reason as well. And other students are using it so that a screen reader can read to them. And we do that process and that program through our office. That is not something necessarily you would know a student is using because it's the text that you've chosen and what's making it accessible, but they have it. We produce Braille in the office. We do have 3 students. 2 are undergrad and 1 is a graduate student that are Braille users, and we do produce your products that you're using in the classroom, whether it's just your syllabus or even working with you to understand how to make the most accessible PowerPoint you can for the student to utilize. So we walk you through that process. At every step of the point in which you're working with a student, feel free and confident to call us to ask us what we think. If a student does come to you and say, you know, in high school I had X, Y, and Z, I'm wondering if you can help me, make sure you let them know that you'd be thrilled to help them, but they do need to go to Disability Services to get the document or to get the letter so that you know exactly what the documentation okays them for. Yes?
Student presents the letter to me or you?
The students present the letter to y'all. We are out straight in the first month of September and in January because we feel it's important, and the faculty have actually told us that they really want to have that interaction with the students. They want to be able to have a conversation, and the students, I think, need to have the opportunity to have that conversation with you as well. Many students will just give it to y'all, and then they'll just walk away. But we can certainly start to engage a student and say, thank you for giving me this, but why don't you tell me a little bit about what you think, how I can help, or however you want to start the conversation. But it is a conversation starter, but most importantly, it tells you exactly what they're okayed through documentation. I think that's an important piece. We have one last program in the office for y'all to know about that is not necessarily effective within the classroom for you, but it helps the students with their academic achievements. We have a program called SAM, Student Academic Meetings. This is secondary to the accommodation that they would receive. So students are able to come into our office multiple times within a semester. Some students actually choose to come every other week and talk to us about their academics, and that really the SAM program takes on a variety of different methods. It might be academic strategy work, it might be executive functioning work, it might be, when one of my students called me, is the concierge. It might be a problem a student is having and we know, where they should be going, so we can send them when they're telling us that they're having trouble paying for their semester and they're worried about registering for spring. We're knowing to send them to the NAV Center and kind of where they need to be processing. So the SAM program really takes on the look of what the student in that moment needs as they're going through. It's a bit of an academic coaching model that we use. The reason I bring this up is many students will tell you they're registered with Disability Services but not give you a letter and not ask for an accommodation, but they might be using us in that format where they're not needing access within the curriculum the way you're teaching, but they are utilizing services.
Is that service, so is that SAM, is that for any student or just students with documented disabilities?
Everything that I'm mentioning is for students with documented disabilities at this time.
So for example, if we had a student that was really struggling with writing, for example, like writing papers, is there a specific?
There is.
Send them to help with something like that?
So Ashlyn works in the place, the
I'm Ashley.
center spot of student services for the general population. But outside of where Ashlyn works is our writing center, and they are phenomenal working with students to kind of unblock them when their writing is needed to be worked with. Outside, I think, is also language labs.
No, outside of our office?
Yes.
I meant physically. I thought you meant physically. Math lab.
Math lab, language
accounting
lab.
language lab.
Yeah, you can submit if you have a student who needs support from a center or a lab, you can submit that through MapWorks, and we'll send it to one of those labs or the writing center, and they'll reach out to the student to let them know that their services are available.
Oh, okay. All right, so that's kind of my follow-up question is, like, should we only be doing the math hub thing after talking to the students ourselves, or can we just kind of go in there and say, hey, I noticed this, or we should really be having a conversation?
We encourage that you have the conversation with the student first, and then say, I'm also going to submit something in MapWorks so they can reach out to you. Otherwise, we just sound like really creepy people calling them.
We noticed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we encourage you to have the conversation first so that it doesn't catch the student off guard when we make the phone call.
So I believe I've hit on the basics of my office. I did bring pens, highlighters, and lollipops because that's my bribe of choice, all of which can be found in the office. Some of y'all do come by on your way to whatever class you're going to and grab a pen or a lollipop and just say hello. That's something we really love having.
What's allowed, what's not allowed?
Oh, he's asking if I want to talk about service animals. No.
Okay.
Yes, I can absolutely. That is service animals actually is not quite new at all on our campus. We do have quite a few service animals, and as you all know, I'm sure, a service animal is a dog or a horse. It's a small horse, but it's a horse. So miniature horse and dogs are under the ADA allowed to provide assistance for a person with a disability, and in those cases, they are allowed anywhere and do not need the okay from our office in any format. The ADA sees a service animal as they see my glasses. So that's an important piece to know. They do not have to be wearing vests. They do not have to show any identification, and we can't ask. We can ask, is it a service animal? And if the student says yes, you can ask 2 follow-up questions, but I think, knowing that it's a service animal and that's how the student is seeing it. And if it's a dog or small horse, please call me immediately when it's a small horse, though I'm dying to have a small horse on our campus. But I wouldn't know, right, if we do have a small horse, because they do not need to come through the office to check on that. So those are those pieces. I think what Jesus is, see, we're great colleagues, so I think he's needling a little bit on that sense, is that the regulations from HUD have changed things around a bit for our students who are living on campus. And through HUD, students are allowed to have assistance animals on campus in the residence halls. Assistance animals are very different from service animals. Service animals, right? Dog, horse. Assistance animal can be anything. It can be anything. Oh, ferrets are easy. Yeah. It's the other anythings. And those can't or shouldn't be coming into your space. There may be a case, I haven't had it yet, but I should not have said that, where the documentation and the need, individually looking at that piece, may be then okay to be in the classroom, but at that point, I would be coming into the conversation with you, and we'd be talking about that. But at this time, it is just the HUD regulations and students having their animals in the residence halls. And why Jesus is bringing this up a bit, I would bet, is because he's kind of gone through this a little bit with our office. In the last year, we've seen tremendous growth in that accommodation request for living on campus. We have quite a few animals, diverse population of animals in our residence halls. But you know what? In a lot of ways, it kind of makes total sense, right? If you need this, you should be able to have this in your own dwelling. So it is opening up, jokes aside, the ability to live on campus for many, many students who would not have been able to otherwise live on campus and have the same experience as other people are having at the same time. So in that sense, that's pretty neat. Just please, please, please don't bring a snake into my office. Or a rat.
What if 2 students are side by side or within the same room itself, and one brings perhaps a service animal and the other is seriously allergic to animal dander?
I get to accommodate both.
How do you do that magic?
You
waves a
just
wand.
do, right? You have to figure out what that student needs, right? So if a student is allergic, we have to let them know that the service animal's there, and then through talking to both of them, sometimes the student with the service animal may choose to move. Another time it might be that other individual is going to choose to move.
And I've been very lucky that when I was a child, I was seriously allergic.
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot be near dogs and cats and everything that's furry and wonderful. I
Yep.
would love to have pets because I've been sent to the hospital. And several years ago, we got a small baby guinea pig. and I visited it on a regular basis at the store to be sure I wasn't going to be allergic. Within a month, I'm in the hospital.
Oh.
Now, knock on wood, whatever wood is available, I've had multiple surface animals in my classroom,
Oh,
and
good.
I've had absolutely no allergic response. But I'm just thinking, I know that, you know, it's well documented, but how do you do that?
Again, it would be accommodating both needs. So it's interesting, and it does become an interesting component when you think about it as a faculty member too. And if you are allergic, then that would be something. My office works with students to make sure that the curriculum's accessible, and we also work with access to the greater community. HR works with the faculty and staff on accommodating. So that's the delineation. The only group that we don't work with is faculty and staff, but we do the rest of accessibility on the campus. So surely, if you do have a situation and you are allergic, please connect with Ezekiel Holt, I believe is a direct contact for you all. And then we'd have to figure out if there's a transfer class or what we do. And then we'd start talking and working with them. But cats, ferrets, rats, snakes, fish, bearded dragons, lots of those this year. Not service animals, no matter what anyone tells you. They're just not.
And only service animals are allowed in the classroom
At
at this time.
With
yes.
rare exception, and you would get a letter.
Socially running academy. My question is for Jesus.
Yes.
So when I get the MapsWorks middle of the semester thing,
Mhm.
if I think all of my students are perfectly fine, do I just ignore?
You can, we prefer that you put something in. You can just, if there's a mass function in there where you can just submit, and if it's empty, it'll mark everybody low, but it shows us that you went in and you reviewed them, and then that's all you need to do. So you can just say that.
Low is a good thing?
Yeah,
Okay.
their risk for failure is low.
Okay.
So you can just say low for everybody, and then submit it, and then we would get that, and then we know not to have to worry about those students. So I think you had a question back there.
I did, I had several. So my question is with faculty, because I'm in both worlds.
Mhm.
I have a daughter on campus. Is, as a faculty, the student, you mentioned it's up to the student to come and bring the letter to
Mhm.
the professor. What if the student doesn't bring the letter, midway through, the student is struggling?
Mhm.
Then we get a wing of that they were supposed to have accommodations.
Mhm.
How do you work with the faculty on that? Because now, as a whole month, which is a big chunk of time has
Mhm.
gone by, in that we were never made aware of that, who do we work with? Because you said faculty work with HR, with those issues, with,
If you're
other issues, but
individually needing an accommodation, you would work with HR. If a student is needing accommodations and you're working with them, you always work with us.
With you,
Yep.
okay, so we will call your office and say we had the student?
Yes, so with Americans with Disabilities Act and 504, it's really clear that the change and shift from IDEA, which is what the students used to be under, the big change is the independence factor, and a student must request the accommodation. It's actually not okay to just assume, right? So faculty really have to wait until that letter is given. Accommodations are also not retroactive, so a student has the right not to ask for an accommodation. They might then go, oh, ugh, kind of underwater, I think I'm going to go to disability services, but the accommodation only starts the minute you receive that letter. We do have many students, believe it or not, that I do not think that they're trying to play games. I really believe they want to see what they can do and where they're going, right? Because in the K-12 system, we held their hands like cuckoo, right? We just really. So we see those students seeing this in a way that we don't see it, right? We don't see accommodations as a bad thing. We see it as their glasses, right? And once they have them, they're able to access whatever they wish. But students coming in, even at finals time, will get a letter because the moment they ask for it, I can give it to them. But that doesn't mean the rest of the semester then something changes for them. It's just that final exam.
So at the time that you receive that letter is when you start.
If you all have some great advice for me, I would love to hear it. I would love to figure out how we get that 18-year-old to switch from that deficit model that we work within so much or so often in the high school to that social justice model of removing barriers.
It usually it probably doesn't happen at that age.
No.
It has to take a whole year. I had the experience, so it takes a while for them
But I always want to ask, just on the off chance y'all have the answer. Because you're right. But you know, and with most of us feeling, I'm sure, the same way, just receiving that accommodation and removing that barrier that doesn't need to be there is what we want them to take advantage of at all costs, so they can be as successful as they wish.
Ashley?
Okay. Hello, my name is Ashton Alexis, and I am the Assistant Director for the Center for Academic Excellence. And so the Center for Academic Excellence, like Lisa had mentioned briefly, is kind of like a hub of academic support, right? So if you're concerned about a student performing in your class, or you might be concerned about something else, you can definitely put in a MapWorks referral. Sometimes we'll have faculty just come right to our office and say, I don't know what's going on with this particular student, but this is just what happened in my class. Under our department, we have the peer tutoring program for the university. So if a student is struggling in your particular course, if they're struggling with a part of your course, right? So that's one thing to understand as well is, in a writing course, it may not necessarily be the writing that the student is struggling with. It may be the reading that the student is struggling with, right? And so working with our tutors, the student can oftentimes tease out those pieces to figure out whether, do I need continued support, like, every week or every other week, or do I just kind of need someone to help me get over this hump for this particular assignment, right? Our peer tutoring program is available to students during the day, in the evening, on the weekends, whatever the tutor's availability is. The tutors are vetted and are paid tutors. We can cover a lot of subjects, not all, but we can cover a lot of subjects. And the way that students would access that is right from their Navigator account. They would, through their regular student portal, they would log on and request a tutor. And then right off the bat, they'll be able to see whether somebody is available that can help with that particular class, or are they going to get a call from our coordinator of academic services, which, if we don't have a match for that particular course, she'll work with the student to figure out what it is that they need help with. Is it content? Is it structure? Is it organization? What is it that they need particular help with? Under our department, we also have supplemental instruction. Is anybody teaching an SI section? SI? No. So supplemental instruction is basically when we have a student, I'm trying to look at it from the student perspective, faculty perspective. So it's when an upperclassman student is sitting in a class that they've already done exceptionally well in, and they're essentially trying to run almost like little mini study sessions with the students in the course. But that request has to come from the faculty member, and it usually is prior to the start of the semester. We usually, at this point, wouldn't be trying to add any SI sections for the fall, but definitely for the spring, we'd be looking for that for the spring. But those sections are courses that have higher rates of fails, higher rates of students withdrawing, higher rates of Ds, those kind of grades. And it really does come from the faculty member wanting to kind of change it up a little bit. Maybe this will help, maybe this will, something else will help. Academic advising, right? Literally going. So under CAE also is our entire academic advising department. So every undergraduate day student is assigned a faculty advisor in their department. So even our students that are undeclared, they'd be assigned a faculty member. Even students who are in transition from one major to the next, they would be assigned a faculty advisor who would help them with some career goals, ideally, as well as, classes for the following semester, kind of academically tracking them, making sure that they're on task. Every undergraduate day student would also have somebody assigned to them in our office based off their alphabet. So however that alphabet split right now exists, somewhere on our website, buried deep, is kind of how my last name is Smith, and SM, this is who I would be assigned to. That is to make sure that the student can kind of consistently see the same person as they come into the office, and to kind of, for them to be able to build a relationship with somebody in the office. Our evening students are assigned folks in the office as their faculty advisor, right? So unlike the day students who have a faculty advisor and an academic advisor, our evening students only have an academic advisor. They don't have necessarily a faculty point person that's helping them navigate through those pieces of it. That being said, the folks in our office have to be generalists, so we have to be able to speak to all of the academic programs at the university at the undergraduate level. We have to be able to speak to all of those programs, kind of what makes sense to take next, what might trip you up if you don't take this versus that, what combos make sense for students, what combos don't necessarily make sense for students. And then just some of that like academic troubleshooting. So if a student is doing, not feeling confident in a course, does it make sense to add 3 courses like that course in the following semester, right? And no matter whether a student is in their first year or second year, you'd be surprised where those conversations are first year, second year, third year, fourth year type conversations. I'm trying to think of what else. I think that's it for our department. Yes, question?
Would you be equipped to have somebody write scientifically? Try something like that?
I'm sorry, I couldn't
Would you
hear.
have people to help them write scientifically?
You learn tutors for that.
Yes, we definitely have tutors that could accommodate that.
I have what might be a silly question, but it sounds
No.
like, so that the day students versus the evening students, the class that I'm teaching is from 4:30 to 6:50, but it's just an undergrad course. So do I have evening students or do I have day?
You might have both.
Oh, okay.
Right. So some of our courses are cross-listed. So some of our courses have day seats in them, right?
Oh, okay.
They appear in the evening, but they may have day seats, and they may also have evening seats, like seats for our true evening students. Some courses are 4:30, and they're 100% day courses. There are no evening seats in it. I don't even know how that happens, but the same thing with 7 o'clock classes. So those 7 to 9:20 classes, you'd be surprised some of those are day students, day courses as well.
So either group of students can take any of these classes, it's just sometimes you primarily get kids who are like going to school at night. Or
Yes.
people who are going to school.
It's a bit complex in the sense of how a student can sign up for it, how they have to wait to get into those courses, and there's even a cost differential between them. And so the academic advisors are experts in knowing how to kind of work through, and those students that need that course to graduate, perhaps as a day student, would then be talked through the process to go through that to sign up.
Okay, so like need-based first, so if you need to take it to graduate, you get kind of higher up.
Not, that's one of the examples.
Yeah.
There can be a
That's a great
variety of
example.
different options for students, but the academic advisors, again, would know how to go through the process, share with the student what that even financial differential would mean for them and what that looks like. So that's the business component that academic advising is experts, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Well,
And- Right, so if you have a question about that, it gets to advising time, and the student is asking a lot of those questions, kind of like, should I take this, or do you think I should, do this or that or whatnot? Just definitely, you could start with them, sending them to our office. We do not, we will not give, so our undergraduate students are able to register by getting access to their code, their registration code, if you will. We will not give the code out until well after classes have ended. So oftentimes if you send them to us to ask a question, we'll answer the question, but we're not gonna go through the button clicking process of actually helping them register, because we want them to make sure that they're seeing their faculty advisor. So all of undergraduate day students are required to see their faculty advisor for that code, and again, to be able to have those kind of conversations and build that relationship. But if it doesn't necessarily happen, we default to them as long as we possibly can, and then we will end up seeing them most likely at the end of the semester after classes have already ended.
Thank you.
I'm gonna pass it on.
So hi, my name is Christine
Oh.
Williams. I am, did you have one more thing?
Oh
Go,
my gosh.
do it.
I'm so sorry. We also have, I apologize, our peer mentoring program. So when students come into our office, we function off a appointment-based model during the academic year. Right now, so like from today through add drop, Is everybody familiar with AdDrop? Yeah. So today through AdDrop, students we don't have any appointments, right? It's like walk-in. It's like just come in and somebody will come and try to help you in this scenario. Right now, we're the only people on. In about a week, our peer mentors will come on, and they're kind of like junior mini advisors, right? So they're able to help with, right, like junior minis.
Junior
So
mini pseudo.
so they'll help with, I'm trying to think of the timing of this class, and I'm trying to take these 4 classes, and the schedule won't work, the schedule doesn't work. That's not something that, we could do it, but our skills are better kind of best suited in other things that might be a little bit more higher level. So then we have our student employees kind of help navigate those pieces. And our experience with our peer mentors has been fabulous. Like if a student has a real general question, I want to generally know how long it's going to take me to graduate. Those kind of questions, our peer mentors have been trained to say, okay, no, this is not a question for me. Let me pass that off to somebody else. So at any point in the year, if a student doesn't have an appointment, they still will be able to be seen by somebody. But if it is a higher level question, more detail oriented stuff, they'll have to make an appointment. But like right now, they could just come in to the office. The other piece is we also have a science tutoring center. So in addition to our peer tutoring, which is kind of everything else except for science, and by science I don't mean like geology, even though geology is a science, like geography, even though geography is a science, but it's more, our science tutoring center is more focused around
STEM.
STEM science. So like biology, chemistry, physics, not necessarily geology. Just wanted to, yeah.
How about biopsychology?
Biopsychology.
That would be peer tutoring.
That would be peer tutoring. Because unless it is a
Not
hard,
just straight biology.
Right,
It's
it's not.
behavioral neuroscience.
right.
They don't need calculus.
No, they don't.
So.
They're very glad about that.
And I do have a quick little, can I steal this for one second?
Yes.
I'll pass this out at the end. So it's kind of a quick cheat sheet to say I want help with, like from the student's perspective, I need help with X, where do I go? And on the back of it, it has where these resources are. So, for example, I need help adding money to my Clipper card, where do I go? And it would direct them to like the website, and then if they didn't get the answer that they needed or whatnot, it also gives them a physical location for an office. So this is 99.9% updated, but there are some changes. We'll make sure you get a copy of that.
So back to counseling and
Sorry.
health services. So again, my name's Christine Williams. I'm one of the associate directors there. From a more functional standpoint, I am the clinical director for the counseling side. And so as our name suggests, we provide health services and counseling services. If you've gone to your PCP anytime in the past 35 years, you have a very good idea of what our health side does. So this is way above and beyond a K through 12 nurse who's kind of sitting around in school. They are able to do any number of procedures that students need done, and we coordinate with North Shore Medical Hospital, Salem Hospital, in the event that it is something sort of above and beyond that. If they are bleeding out, having a heart attack, or if something is broken, that is generally speaking when we need to pass them along. But really everything up until that point, our health side can handle. They're staffed by 4 nurse practitioners and a supervising physician. So you can always tell students that we are here available for them. And after hours, so after 5 o'clock, we coordinate very closely with the CVS that I think you can actually see if you turn around and look out this window. So they have a minute clinic, which a lot of you are probably familiar with nowadays. CVS, Walgreens are almost doing their own sort of in-house clinics, again, to kind of accommodate that after 5 p.m. Because again, we're more like a regular doctor's office. We are not an emergency room. So on the health side. On the counseling side, same thing there. If you've ever gone to a psychiatrist, psychologist, social worker who is in private practice, that is what we do on the counseling side. In terms of our communication, so me ever potentially interacting with one of you, at this point in time, that probably isn't going to happen. I'll pass you along to Christine Sullivan, our student advocate, who is going to talk more about students of concern, what happens when you have a student whose perhaps safety you're afraid of, or something that, as Jesus was saying, the non-emergency, those non-clinical things about kind of academic function go MapWorks. Other things go Chris and kind of her office and the Dean of Students' office. And so what do? We provide services to students at this point in time. If a student is sitting with you and would like to schedule an appointment, then definitely, call our office. I have brochures, but most of the time when I get these things at new orientations or anything else, they go missing somewhere. What are you going to do? You're going to pick up your phone and Google counseling services at Salem State. You'll get to our phone number. We'll need to speak to the student to make the appointment. We do not reach out to students to ask them if they would like a counseling appointment. As Jesus pointed out, that's a little creepy to call and be like, hi, I heard you might be suffering from depression. Can I help you? That is not a good way to get a student in. Just no. So we are the people that, if a student is with you, definitely you can have them call our office to schedule something. But most of the time, it's going to be either going through MapWorks, again, if it's a student who's having academic issues, or through student advocacy and the Dean of Students' office. Our director, Elisa Castillo, who is a licensed psychologist, now works out of their space. And so this, if you've talked to a counseling center, even on our campus, but other campuses before, there's only so much we can do and say because of HIPAA. We're not allowed to discuss treatment with you. But Chris's office and our new Assistant Dean of Wellness, Elisa Castillo, being a licensed psychologist, can consult with you in a much more detailed way. Now, here is always the question from faculty. But I called and I had to leave a message, this is an emergency. What do you need to be doing? Calling the police, calling 6411. If it is something where you are not sure if a student is safe, if they're using language that you can't parse out, all of our officers on campus are trained EMTs. After hours in the residence halls, they are the ones who are the first responders to do a quick assessment of the situation and see if something else needs to happen. So that is always a resource for you. You are never alone. If you're kind of in that in-between, I would suggest that you kind of do a two-step check. Is it that you don't want to call the police because it's scary? You should probably call. They are wonderful. We have done so much training with them. They talk to students in the best possible way. If you are thinking, well, you know what, I don't want to call, but I'm not feeling great about this situation, having taught adjunct and doing this just as part of my job, I can tell you that is sometimes the difficult stuff that we do sit with, but leave that message for advocacy and they will get back to you. So it's kind of the piece to parse out. But really it's that simple. We're here to serve students on campus.
Are there example situations? I don't really understand when I'm calling the police or you.
So is the student sitting with you and just like, oh my gosh, I think it would be good to make a counseling appointment. I'm struggling since my mom died. I'm thinking about killing myself.
And you're concerned about them leaving your space.
Yeah.
Or if there's something that feels unsafe in the classroom, then that also would be a campus police call. Something that you need immediate response because you either need a person removed or you need something to happen for that person and you're fearful for their safety. You have that question in your mind.
Do you need someone to show up and help you right there?
Yeah.
And answer that question for you immediately?
So it's like some student wants to hit another student?
Absolutely,
Call the
calling
police.
police.
Okay.
Don't
So
pass go.
it would be considered an emergency. So treat situations where if you were at home and it was happening to your kid or to you or
Perfect.
I would need to call the police because this person's out of control. That has no place in MapWorks and no place with administrators. That belongs with law enforcement.
Another way that those things sometimes come out is if you ask them to write a personal narrative, or they ask them to solicit something where they're writing something about personal
Theater
information.
faculty? Any theater faculty? Okay. My English, my theater, and my psych. Those definitely will be talking with Chris in her office quite a bit.
Right, and those are it's just basically opportunities. I know for us, when we're dealing with, or working with students in any capacity where they've written something, I don't want to kill myself right now, but, 3 years ago I wanted to do this. It's like, it's like sometimes it's a check-in with the student, and then it's also making sure that they know, of the resources that we have on campus.
But that is not a decision
Yeah.
any of you have to make on your own. That
Right.
is what Chris and her office is for.
Then it will be determined.
And that's the thing, is that is definitely distressing, and I don't want to say that any of this isn't distressing, but what is, again, an emergency where you need interaction right there?
The graduate student didn't know there were any, because I said,
Mhm.
be sure if you reach out to these,
Right.
to
Mhm.
campus, they're gonna be able to reach out and help you through this. And we were able to work through and getting some resources, but I was surprised to hear that.
And we're at graduate orientation, but just like most of you will not remember most of what we have said in this past hour because it's a long day and so on and so forth, they don't necessarily hear that. So you may also not remember this after you leave this room, but again, on the Salem State websites, you can find all of us, so yeah, it's great.
What's the number again? What's the number?
I didn't actually give it, but I would encourage you, because things do shift over time, I would encourage you to look online at our website and just be there, Google it when the student is
With,
there.
on the website, they have a new A through Z
Yeah.
kind of listing. And just so you know, because I think it took us, a variety of us, a while to figure it out, like if you go to counseling, it'll give you the number. If you click on the word counseling, it gives you more information. So it's all right there. Yeah.
I think, I'm really aware of the time, so I want to pass stuff off to Chris, and then if
Okay.
we have any time for
Sure.
individual questions afterwards, let's do that.
So I'm Chris Sullivan. I'm the Director of Student Advocacy, and I'm part of the Dean of Students Office. And from a student perspective, my primary role is to assist students who are running into barriers. Really, in some cases, it's really listening to figure out what's going on, where is this causing you problems, what really is the issue, and referring. I work very closely with all of these offices in terms of referring students to the appropriate place, sometimes helping them strategize what is the next step, and who does what are the policies, procedures, what are the appeal processes. Almost everything here has an appeal process, and so helping students kind of know how things work, as well as assist when they're dealing with a crisis or a particular situation that is impacting them either in the classroom or outside of the classroom. I collaborate with faculty. As Christine was saying, myself and Elisa Castillo, who wanted to be here today but unfortunately had a conflict, she's our Assistant Dean for Wellness, and she's who I report to. The two of us are kind of a team that do consultation with faculty, staff on campus, should they need support and kind of talk through something. On occasion, you may get a call from us that we have a student that we're working with, or an email from us, kind of touching base to see, so how's it going in your classroom? Or, if there's a need for us to fill in some gaps in that way, or if there's been a particular crisis and the student isn't able to advocate on their own, they're not able to speak with you, that might be a situation where we're checking in to see, might an incomplete be possible? Would you support a retroactive withdrawal? So if there's been a hospitalization, if somebody's in a treatment program and they're not able to contact you directly, that would be a time. If a student is ill and missing a couple days, sometimes folks think of the Dean of Students Office as a place you send them to get a note. We don't do that, and Health Services doesn't do that either. What we really kind of coach students to do is, as soon as you have an issue, make sure you're communicating with your faculty members. Don't wait until, it's now 3 or 4 weeks later and you're struggling now because you missed there, but you had something legitimate. You don't want them in your class if they have the flu, right? So you want to have that conversation with them. But also, as an adult, they need to be able to advocate for themselves and share that kind of information and see what's possible. They often would like me to make the call, but just so you know, that's something that we really are having them do. And so please don't send them to us for that, in that case. If a student has, as I say, a larger situation where they're out for an extended period of time, whether there's something very significant going on and we feel like they need some support and we need to check in with you to see what's possible, the bottom line is, as faculty members, you're the folks who make the decision about the grade and the content, and have they, learned enough of the content for you ethically to give them, an appropriate grade. We understand that. And so that really sits with you. I urge you all to communicate your attendance policy and your syllabus with students and go over it with them so that they're aware of that. I'm also the primary support person for some special groups on campus. Foster care, we have the largest number of students in the state university system who are involved with foster care. Many of those students don't have an adult in their life, so I can be that person for them if they like. I have connections with the Department of Children and Families in terms of some of the financial support that they can get and kind of help them iron that out, help them get back into foster care services if they kind of walked away for a little bit, and get them some support. Students who are homeless, we had over 50 students last year who were homeless or at risk for homelessness. And that ranged from students who lived in the halls, who had no place to go during breaks, to students who were living in their cars. And that's just the students who shared that with me. Oftentimes, I find out about those students through their interactions with you and that referral. I don't have magic money, I don't have a magic wand, but I'm very familiar with resources on this campus and off campus, and will try to help students figure out what are some next steps for them. I may be able to help them on their financial aid, and that's a real hurdle for students who are homeless, where folks are asking for their parents' information, and they may not, in either of these cases, may not have adults in their life to do that. So I can help them kind of work through that. I work pretty closely with financial aid. And then hungry. We have a lot of students on campus who are hungry. The last survey that we did had over 200 students that responded, and you know how folks are about responding, right, to begin with, who indicated they had an issue related to hunger at some point during the semester. As a result of that, we started a pantry about 3.5, 4 years ago. It's across from my office. It's non-perishables, and students are, all they need to do is contact me, and we'll set up a time for them to come. And I'll also connect them with resources off campus. Whether they're, if they're in this community, there are other meals happening in the area, as well as other pantries. For our commuters, folks who are in apartments, I can help them connect with resources that make sense for them as well. What I say to students oftentimes, if they're not sure where to go, they can come to see me and I'll help them figure out what's next or where to go. The other piece we've kind of talked a little bit about is that if you're worried about a student, we do have systems in place. MapWorks is our baseline place. It's not for emergencies or sharing specific personal information. Just think about what you're writing in there, because you don't necessarily want to be disclosing a student's personal business there. But it's a great resource, and I get all of the ones that are tagged as personal come to me, and I kind of triage and sort those out. We also have a care and concern team that I sit on. So let's say you have a student in your classroom and you just have some concern. There's something just, you're just in your gut. You're feeling like you might want to share it with me. You might want to share it with Elisa. We'll bring it to this team, which has the deans of the colleges, representatives from the student life end of things, and we kind of get a whole picture of what's going on for that student. Has anybody else had any interaction with the student? Kind of put that together and then assign what's going to happen next in that situation. So it's not for a threatening kind of situation, but it's above the MapWorks. It's at a next level. And then we do have a threat assessment team as well. That typically those kind of things often come out of rise up out of the care and concern. But just so that you know that there are a variety of systems here that are looking to support students who might be dealing with a difficult situation, and we try to be proactive about getting those folks the support they need. So I urge you to kind of check in with that. So that just quickly, that's who I am and some of the things that I deal with. I do have sorry, I ended up doing this on the copy machine, don't tell anybody. My stuff isn't back from the copy center. But I do have my flyer here as well. So, questions?
Quickie, so the police, the extension is 6411, but if I call through my cell phone, what is the actual?
That is
number?
not the extension for the police.
No.
That is 6111 is for the police.
And the actual phone number that I could put in my? cell phone?
978-542, and then that number.
That's the emergency number.
Yeah.
Yep. That's like, it's on fire right now. It's on fire right now.
Yeah.
Just to be clear.
They both get funneled to the same.
Right.
They do.
But you have to remember, they have a dispatcher that can help triage if you are not 100% sure. That's often a problem, especially for adjuncts who are here in the evening when a lot of offices are closed and a lot of people are home. So I would encourage you not to worry yourself thinking through, oh, does this rise to the level? No, get that support because there's not often a lot of people around and they are the people who are. They have a dispatch 24/7 that will be able to speak with you.
Is 6411 the non-emergency?
That
No,
is
that is the
actually my personal extension to counseling, so I'm not sure who said it. I'm like,
That was so funny. I was like,
yeah.
that sounds
And I
like
don't
a
answer that.
number.
It's all the way down because I'm busy seeing patients, so you will not get me answering that till 7 o'clock at night at
So
least.
say it again.
6111. Yeah.
So it's just one number emergency?
No, there is a non-emergency number, but that is the number to call. And as Christine said, there is a dispatcher that will triage. If it is something that is non-emergent, you have a flat tire, they'll be okay with you to call in
Oh, okay.
611.
Thank you.
So, for those of you who are brand new faculty or adjunct faculty, we have great students. You know, we've talked about some of the tough things, but we're all here because we love our students, and hope you come to love them like we do. Yeah.
So we have some resources up here for you all. So feel free to grab what you need, and I guess you guys are off.